Hello. And for today's assignment, I will be talking about the Supreme Court cases McCulloch versus Maryland and United States versus Lopez. So, firstly, in 1819, the United States made their second bank. This is a federal bank and was trying to create branches between different states. One of the most well-known of these branches being in Baltimore, Maryland. The Maryland government did not like this, and they started saying that if there was any bank that was not chartered from Maryland, they would be charged $15,000 a year. And if you adjust to inflation, it's about $300,000 today for every bank they have. Now, eventually, this was taken up to the Supreme Court in a case called McCulloch versus Maryland. The main argument by the two was that Maryland had said that in Article 1, Section 8, that it never states that Congress has the power to create a bank. And McCulloch argued that in Article 1, Section 8, that because of the necessary and proper clause, it is constitutional for the bank to make for the United States government to make a bank. This was, of course, unanimously voted by the Supreme Court that the case with what is like the implied powers in Article 1, Section 8 of the necessary and proper clause, pretty much saying that since it isn't prohibited by the Constitution specifically and is within the spirit of the Constitution, it was okay for the federal government to make a bank and put it in whatever state they wanted to put it in, make whatever branches they wanted to make. In this case, the states took a massive loss pretty much because they couldn't have a say over what the federal government said, and it showed that when in competition with the federal government will pretty much always win. Now, this directly falls into the Supreme Court case United States versus Lopez, where Alfonso Lopez decided that he wanted to carry his gun or his pistol or his handgun on to school with his bullets in it. Now, the administration received a tip claiming this, and when it was found to be true, he was arrested for illegally carrying firearms in a school zone. Now, the very next day, all these charges against Lopez were dropped, at least by the state, because the federal government has a law that states that having a gun within a school zone is a crime, and he was sentenced to 6 months in prison. Now, this is where things get a little interesting, because the problem with this case was that the federal government is not allowed, or not supposed to be allowed, to place limitations on how guns are used within a state, and therefore the case arose about it being perhaps unconstitutional. It was claimed that this was done through the Commerce Clause of Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. This was obviously seen as a big issue because if there was guns within a school, it would lead people to not want to visit the state, and then leading to less economic profit and less economic commerce within the state, which is why they said that it was because of the Commerce Clause. But on the other hand, Lopez argued that the gun regulation within a school property should be specifically up to the state. And the argument otherwise was overstepping. The federal government was overstepping its boundaries into the state's rights, which were not stated within the Constitution. Now, this, of course, was deemed in favor of Lopez, most likely because of the weak case which was argued by the United States, and which did not rule in favor of Lopez, would have resulted in did not rule in the favor of Lopez, would have resulted in the federal government being able to use the Commerce Clause for pretty much whatever they needed if given a reason as to why they should have the right to do so. Thank you for watching.